I'm here at the scene of the crime spree, right behind me.
Strange. Vice Mayor Strange, you'll address her properly.
You can kiss my foot.
Mr. Rickard, you're out of order.
FBI, we are asking you to investigate this council. Please look into this council, how they award contracts, the bid process, how they use their positions to benefit their friends and themselves, how they use their positions to attack residents and critics and neighbors and business competition. FBI, will you please look into this?
And I welcome the FBI here. If you notice, Mr. Thompson, with his plea for the FBI and his watchdog group, this city runs the cleanest in this whole county. I guarantee
He was served a federal subpoena this morning.
We did receive a subpoena this morning, and we're going to cooperate 100% with the subpoena.
And most of you who were involved up here, you gaslighted me. You tried to say I was crazy. And now we know that that's not true. And there's a lot of other issues I've been asking about as well.
Well, last night was an interesting night. I went to the city council meeting, the Panama City Beach City Council meeting, and I asked some questions, and wow, no answers at all. I mean, no denials, no yes, but it's none of your business. It was just, that's private, and you can't ask those questions. But I think there are definitely questions worth asking, especially considering that this city hall was subpoenaed by the FBI in August. Every single one of them had to comply with a federal subpoena into public corruption. Let me start with this. I'm going to show you exactly what I said at the city council meeting last night that upset them so much. And then I'm going to show you some documentation and the reasons why I asked these questions. There's a lot going on right now in Bay County. I keep hearing things like, like this. So early education is critical, and we're pleased to serve our pre-K students. This just came out today, right after I asked Mayor Mark Sheldon if he's planning on building a preschool. Remember that Mark Sheldon has all the local media on his payroll because he gets $735,000 a year from the TDC to market his music festivals. He owns Gulf Coast Jam and he owns Sand Jam. And so with that money, he pays WMBB, WGHG, the News Herald to run ads. I don't know how much he pays them. He won't tell anybody, but it's a lot. So he can call his friends and say, hey, Burnie was over here asking some questions about pre-K. Can you run some good stories about how important pre-K is? Because I just want to help the community is all. Let me show you what I said yesterday at the meeting. And I'm going to look at your comments too. Tell me if this is out of line. Hello, I'm Burnie Thompson. The main thing that we want is honest government and public servants with integrity, not politicians with their hands perpetually in the cookie jar. And with that in mind, I have a few quick questions, Mr. Mayor. This won't take long. Did your company, Mark Sheldon LLC, purchase a piece of commercial property in February for $233,000 that was previously owned by the St. Joe Company? Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Yes, it is. And I'm wondering.
No, if it's not city business, we're not.
This is city business. Yeah, and I'm wondering because it has to do with roads too that you'll be voting on, each of you. And I'm wondering if so, did you use any of the $350,000 that was never returned, the TDC money that was never returned? Was any of that money used? Because you get $735,000 a year.
It's not clear to me how the entire council can address that question.
Okay. Well, this property that I'm speaking of, it's located by Home Depot on the way up to Arnold. And I'm wondering if you're planning to create a road there and name it Market Street West. And one reason I'm asking, because you guys would be voting on that, one reason I'm asking is because I saw you with Senator Gaynor and a lobbyist not too long ago when you went to Tallahassee to talk about roads. And if you are planning to do that, are you planning to build a hotel there, a Best Western, on the piece of property that you bought on the leading up to Arnold High School? And will it have anything to do with your new company, Mr. Mayor, Panhandle Academy, LLC? And will Panhandle Academy be a preschool business? These are some of the things I'm curious about. Because I think one of the vendors that you hire to do your music festivals is in the preschool business. The one with National Event Rentals. And this particular vendor also owns National Emergency Response Group. Which brings my attention to the sports complex. And I've noticed that Superintendent Husfeld's been coming up, and y'all have been talking about removing the current preschool from Arnold High School and moving it to the sports complex. And if you do that, if you remove it, then that's going to create an opportunity around Arnold High School to bring in a new preschool that's just down the street from the Best Western. I'm wondering if you're planning on building on Market Street West. So my overarching question, Mr. Mayor, is this. Is all this stuff in the works for your business ventures? Because if it is, then it appears that you have your hand in quite a few cookie jars as the mayor of Panama City Beach. And I would love to get answers to this. Or is all of this just private business and not subject to questions here at this meetings, which is supposed to center around city business?
I'm not sure
Thank
it's
you.
city business. Market Street is private. The sports complex is in the county.
Market Street West is private. Does it exist now?
It exists. Market Street, as it exists right now, is private.
Market Street West, where you
Thank
bought
you.
the property, does that exist now?
Thank you. Your time is up.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody else have any public comments for this evening? Seeing none, we'll close that portion of the meeting and we will move on to our presentations. Councilman Casto.
Isn't that something? I mean, could you imagine just not answering questions? So here's the deal. The mayor of Panama City Beach, Mark Sheldon, in February, bought a piece of property, a commercial piece of property, by Home Depot, leading up to Arnold High School. It's about an acre. And my Feel the Burn watchdog alerts tell me that he's going to build a hotel. Now, this is interesting for a lot of reasons. Remember, the Tourist Development Council, the TDC, that gets its revenue from a 5% bed tax. Well, because these guys are insatiable, they extended the taxing authority into the county. So Mark Sheldon is going to be building, I guess he hadn't denied it, so I'm going to keep assuming that my sources are right. It looks like he's going to be building a Best Western hotel. That will bring more revenue to the TDC that pays him nearly $750,000 every year to market music festivals that haven't been going on. And he won't say where the money's spent. And the TDC doesn't give a flip about it. By the way, neither do the local news channels. And people say, why? The reason the local news channels don't care about it is because they are public-private partners with him, with the governments. This is what's happened to local news. They have lost so much advertising revenue, and to pick up the slack, local governments pay them. Local governments pay them to run ads. Mark Sheldon's company for Gulf Coast Jam and for Sand Jam pay these news outlets a ton of money to run ads. They are public-private partners. They don't want to lose that revenue. So they're not going to report critically on Mark Sheldon. And isn't that the role of the media, to be a watchdog? Not a jerk, but a watchdog, not a lapdog. And since they're on his payroll, he can call them up and say, run a story. And that is, in my opinion, the reason, after I asked the questions about a preschool, are you going to build a preschool, Mark Sheldon? all of a sudden, his friends start posting stuff like this. Now, this is important because in the last couple of months, the superintendent of schools, Bill Husfeld, has been going to the meetings, and they've been talking about moving the preschool at Arnold High School to the new sports park, to the school over there. So that means there's an opportunity to start another preschool. Now, why do I think that Mark Sheldon might be thinking about doing this? Because he recently started yet another LLC. He has a ton of LLCs. This one's called Panhandle Academy. So I said, is Panhandle Academy, your new business you just started, is that going to be a preschool? He won't answer. Why not? So there's more. Remember, he owns Gulf Coast Jam and Sand Jam. So he hires vendors to set up the tents and do all kinds of stuff. One of those vendors is in the preschool business. And also the vendor owns National Event Rentals. That's who Mark Sheldon hires. Also the same guy owns National Emergency Response Group. There's a lot going on here. And I just want to know some answers. We saw that Mark Sheldon, Mayor Sheldon, was with a lobbyist in Tallahassee last week visiting George Gaynor, and it had to do with building roads. Now, the piece of property that he bought, 1 acre of commercial property, right by Home Depot on the way up to Arnold High School, that property, doesn't have an address yet, right? They've got to build a street. They're developing this. And so on the promissory note, there's no address, but on Mark Sheldon Real Estate LLC, on his new property that he just bought in February, by the way, for $233,000. Is that a good deal? Commercial piece of property right there. What a deal. And that property was previously owned by the St. Joe Company. They played a little ping pong with some other people in between, and so they're going to, it says to be determined, and the road that's to be determined even has a name, Market Street West. And that was the end of the conversation there when I said Market Street West. And somehow the attorney, Amy Myers, knew all about Mark Sheldon's private business, because she said, well, Market Street is already a private street. And I said, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about Market Street West. Does that exist yet? No, it doesn't exist yet. So how does he know the name of it? Does the city council have to vote on it? We're going to find all this stuff out. But take a look at some of this documentation. So here is what Mark Sheldon was able to buy the property for, $233,000. It's 1 acre, and he bought it from these people right here. See, Mark Sheldon Real Estate LLC on February 18, 2021. What a deal, $233,000. I wonder what St. Joe sold it for before it got to these people who sold it to Mark Sheldon. Here is a little bit more information. This is the owner of the lot that I'm telling you about. Now, incidentally, there's 2 acres that are connected to it, also owned by these people right here. See where it says Grantor? They also own about 2 acres right next to it. And I wonder, in order to get a Best Western hotel there and maybe a preschool, they might have to buy that one too, Mark Sheldon Real Estate LLC. But I don't know because they won't answer any questions. Let's take a look at this. Well, the St. Joe Company, you see down there at the bottom, they previously owned that. And at some point sold it for, wow, that's about twice as much as Mark Sheldon bought it for. 440 divided by 2 is 220. Holy shnikes. Look at that. So I don't know what that means because nobody's talking. Why does anybody else get the feeling that there's a lot going on and we're not in on it? And we're told it's none of our business. When the city council and Bay District schools are talking about moving preschools, and the mayor has a new business called Panhandle Academy and won't say what it's going to be, I have questions, and everybody should have questions, because Mayor Sheldon has his hands in too many cookie jars. But he's done this kind of thing for a long time. If you don't know his history, Mark Sheldon, he got here about 6-7 years ago from Alabama. And he was he was in sort of the entertainment business, the development business in there, but they got in a lot of trouble and he had to leave. And so when he ran for office a couple of years ago, I said, look, I think you should be the concert promoter or the mayor. That was my thing. You could be the concert promoter or the mayor, but once you're both, there are too many conflicts of interest. Am I right or wrong? Here's what Mark Sheldon did before he got here.
I've argued that it's a conflict of interest for a mayor of any city to get paid tax money to promote his own concerts. Most voters disagreed with me. After all, Mark Sheldon's been doing this stuff for a long time. Here he is in Alabama about a decade ago. He worked for this man, Ronnie Gilly. Mark Sheldon was the registered agent for Ronnie Gilly Properties, and he was Gilly's chief operating officer. Soon afterward, there was a public corruption sting, and Ronnie Gilly went to prison for nearly 7 years.
We're absolutely excited. I mean, the project that Ronnie's put together is phenomenal. It's hiring and employing a lot of local folks, a lot of people that haven't been to having a job for a little while. Obviously, the economy's tough, and there's people that was just, on the job site this morning, and a man telling me, thank Mr. Gilly, I haven't had a job in 4 months. So it's great to see people that are actually from our local area getting the opportunity to go to work again, and that's everything that Ronnie's done for us. It's an amazing project.
The year before Ronnie Gilly was busted, Mark Sheldon served on a public board that voted to buy 52 acres of land for country crossing improvements. Oh, and they voted to buy the land from Ronnie Gilly himself. You can see Mark Sheldon here orchestrating the yeses.
For the 5 board members present, in order to proceed with today's meeting.
This is another meeting. Just before it's called to order, he whispers something to a fellow board member. That's Chuck Taylor, the CFO for Ronnie Gilly. He did all the accounting, and they're about to vote.
All ready?
Maybe he's not like that anymore. At any rate, Mark Sheldon escaped the dragnet in Alabama, spruced up his image, and came to Panama City Beach.
Please do not miss the official city Christmas tree put up by the Tourist Development Council. This year, the official tree is in the open area of the municipal complex in front of City Hall, and it's visible from Back Beach Road. There's parking if you want to get a family photo with a tree and the 12 reindeer out front.
In 2015, the Tourist Development Council gave him $1.7 million to start up the music festivals here, and they pay his annual marketing budget, $750,000. They set it up to split the profits. 2 of his fellow councilmen now serve on the TDC. That's where they vote to keep the money flowing.
It's hard to keep up with all of that, but we do our best. I want to tell you a couple of things. So I've got a new format, obviously, and I want to share with you how you can keep up with it. It is also on YouTube, live on YouTube. And as a matter of fact, YouTube, every time I do this, it's live on YouTube and live on Facebook. And YouTube has it just looks better. The picture's better. It's crisper. And so if you're on YouTube, I'm going to start being more busy there. And I hope, of course, that you'll like and subscribe the page. But also, this is a big deal. Since the news outlets aren't going to tell this story, and I'm going to show you, I'm not just going to tell you, I'm going to show you the documents and so on and so forth. I hope that you'll share it with your friends and like and follow the show here on Facebook. And this is big. I would say when I talk about my Feel the Burn watchdog alerts, it's because somebody tells me. And some sources are better than others. And I always check them and double check them and triple check them. But if you see or you know of public corruption in Bay County, that is how you can tell me. All tips are confidential. As a matter of fact, back in 2018, one of the council members sued me for defamation. Hector Solis sued me for defamation. And the reason he sued me is he wanted to find out who my sources are. And so in the 14th Circuit, right here in Bay County, I said, I'm not telling you who my sources are. Are you crazy? You guys are just going to attack them. And even Judge Fensom here in the 14th Circuit upheld my journalistic privilege and did not allow them to try to find out who my sources are. So all tips are confidential if you know of wrongdoing. But here's another thing. I am a one-man show. All right. I do this on a shoestring. I walk a tightrope with no net. I got fired from the radio station back in 2014 because I wouldn't tell you what they wanted me to tell you because it wasn't true. They told me to stop criticizing certain public officials, and that's just not going to happen. So the only reason that I can tell you these things is because I don't work for anybody else. I work for you and the sponsors and those of you who support me. And if you like what I'm doing, that's one way that you can support me. It's anonymous. You can quit anytime you want to. So if you go to Patreon, patreon.com/Burnie Thompson, it sure helps keep the lights on and keep me going. I'm going to keep going anyway, but it sure makes it easier. All right. I've got a lot more to tell you in the coming days. I've got stories you're just not going to believe. You couldn't believe this, honestly, right? This is a big deal, right? This is not a little deal. This should be top of the fold, front page news, and everybody knows it. But they're public-private partners. I'm not. I'm here because I think the truth should have its day. And I'm fed up with voters not having the information to make good decisions. I'm so delighted, too, that the FBI has paid attention. And if you don't know, there is a massive public corruption, ongoing investigation all throughout Bay County. They're going to wrap up Lynn Haven, and Bay District Schools has been subpoenaed. Panama City Beach has been subpoenaed. I believe Panama City has been subpoenaed, and more indictments and more arrests are coming. And wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if we could clean it up just a little bit? I'm not upset with Mark Sheldon being a tenacious business person, thinking about, how to grow a business and make money from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to bed. I'm not upset about that. But don't you want public servants who are actually there to, honor their oath of office, apply the law equally to everybody, not use his position to benefit his friends? And I'm not just talking about him alone. There are so many of them. See, you can be a contractor, for example. You can be an engineer, but you can't be an engineer, Robert Carroll, and a county commissioner at the same time and vote on things that benefit you and your business. Same goes with Tommy Ham. Those are the three worst offenders right there. Robert Carroll, Commissioner Tommy Ham, and Mayor Mark Sheldon. It is unbelievable what they do. Well, we got a right to earn a living, Burnie. Yeah, but don't conflate the two. Don't you want elected officials that care about being elected officials first? Yeah, but what we do, Burnie, see, is if something comes up like that, then what we do is we recuse ourselves. Yeah, but every time you recuse yourself, every time you do that, the people you represent, your district has no voice, no say in that issue. For example, in the county, every time Robert Carroll recuses himself, and he does it a lot, Maybe there's a development issue. Well, we're going to rezone something and develop something, and the St. Joe company's coming in here, and Tommy Ham's going to build a bunch of houses, and I'm going to be the engineer of record, Robert Carroll. But I recuse myself. But every time you do that, you put your self-interest above all of your constituents. They have no voice in that development. It's wrong. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. I want to thank you so much for being with me. I don't know how often I'm going to do this. I'm not going to do it at a specific time, but I hope you'll click the like and follow and support as much as you can, because I've got quite a bit more coming, and I'm excited to share it with you. Thank you for being with me.